Hi everyone, Ceri the Crafter here. Welcome to my messy art mat, but then we're going to get messy today. So I've been asked a few times how I make my backgrounds, and there's no secret to it, and I thought, right, let's make a little tutorial for you. I use a jelly plate or a jelly press, and we'll look more at that in the second half of this video. So business being business, I'm Ceri the Crafter. If you are looking at me for other social media, then I recommend if you go to Facebook, look for Ceri the Crafter. If you're a cake person, there is a Ceri the Cake. If you want to look at my digital downloads, and there are quite a few digital downloads and I add them quite regularly, go onto my Etsy shop and look for Ceri the Crafter, favourite it, put on notifications, and you'll actually see when I post new stuff. And as I said, I do digitals, I don't actually do physical products. So if you're in the digital market, that's what you're looking for. So what am I talking about backgrounds? Well, I'm talking about this sort of stuff. Please excuse the shadows. It's a bright day here in Cardiff. We don't have them very much, so I'm going to do my best to show you stuff without getting too many shadows, things. So things like that. And then when I do the bigger 12 by 12s, we're talking about stuff like this. Now people are asking how I do all of these, what tools, where do I get them from, where can they buy them? Actually, you can't buy them. They're things I make myself, which is why I'm doing this tutorial here. So just want you to look at some of these. So if you look at these things, these are not the bottoms of coffee cups or lids from jam jars or things like that, which they could be, and they're actually made with this. So I'm going to show you how I make one of my jelly plate tools. It's really simple. As you can see, that's the circle one. Here's a dotty one. I've done a couple of square ones, and once you've made them, they're made for life, and as long as you look after them, you'll find they'll last for years and years and years. I don't clean them off. Every layer of paint just adds an extra layer of texture. They're on what do you call this in America? I think you call this chipboard in America, although I just call this card. You can do it out of recycled cereal packets if you wish. I tend to use grey board, which is what this is for me. If you find you've only got thin packaging, glue a few layers together and that will thicken it up. If they warp a little bit, just give them a little flex in the opposite direction. It'll straighten them out. No problem there. So bear in mind, those are the circles and those are the dots. And if you look here, here are the circles and here are the dots. So let's clear all of my mess out the way. Put that to one side, that to one side. Now what are you going to need? As I said, you're going to need some, I call this grey board. It could be cereal packaging. As I said, I think my American followers call it chipboard. To me, chipboard is actually made of wood, so I get a bit confused with the terminology. Fun foam from your local dollar store or your pound store, any cheap place you can buy it from. I go for no particular thickness, just anything I want. And where's the rest of the stuff? You'll need a sharp craft knife, a big paintbrush. I use Mod Podge, and yes, some people may say, oh, that's a bit expensive, but you know what? If I'm investing in something that's going to last for years, I'm going to use the best there is. And for me, Mod Podge gives it a sealant, it actually makes it slightly waterproof, it protects it, gives it longevity. So let's get ourselves started. Now, whenever I do one of these, I don't normally have a plan in mind, I just go for it. Now, if I want uniform shapes like squares or circles, I could actually use a die cut. So if I've got a circular die, I actually have a big shop by Sizzix, so I could put my foam through a die cutting machine, put dies on it, cut them out, stick them on, or you could cut them by hand. That's just my personal preference. So today I'm going to make one that's a little not as uniform, should we say. Now you need a sharp blade for this. I would say change your blade regularly, or this is one that you just snap the end off, so look after it. Hold it down, and I'm just going to cut some wavy lines in this. I'm not being particular, as you can see, just any old shape, and I'm probably not going to use all of these anyway, so I will just put them in a stash for another day. There you go, don't mind that. Let's cut a couple of these into interesting shapes as well. I'm trying not to be uniform, so if you know me, you know that's not easy because I am OCD, so it's a little tricky with the uniformity thing. So there you go. Now I'm trying not to keep them in order, as I said, so just collect all your pieces up. I tend to randomly stack them into a pile. this piece here, I'm just going to put that one side. I'll use it for another day, I'm sure. Put that to one side, and then comes into play my grey board. Now, you could use anything. You could use anything you can stick anything to. So as I said, you could use packaging. I'm using a rectangle. You could just do a small one. If you could do a circle, whatever works for you. I tend to print quite large because I've got a 14 by 4. No, I haven't. I've got a 14 by 14 jelly plate. I've got smaller ones, but that's the one that I use mostly for doing a print this size, because this gives me a 12 by 12 plate at the end of it. So use whichever you want. Now, I'm using Mod Podge. There are other products I'm sure you can use on the market. This just happens to be my favourite one. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to reasonably liberally put it onto the grey board. And this is why I've got a messy mat, because when I do this, I don't care if I go over the edges. Once I've glued a little section down, I tend to immediately come in and stick my pieces down. Now, if I find I'm going to go off the edge, let's not worry about that, because you know what? I can actually cut that off afterwards. I tend to do it in sections because grey board being porous, it could soak the Mod Podge in. So I'm working quite quickly here, only because the camera's turned on, for no other reason, guys. So I'm going to just add them wherever I want them on here. As I said, I'm not particularly fussy as to where. Says he fussing around with the piece. I'm not particularly fussy about where they go. I just want to get them on there. I'm looking for an interesting pattern. When you're working with a jelly plate or a jelly press, some people call it mono printing as well. That's another name you might want to search on the internet for. People are looking for interesting patterns to actually create texture, and it's visual texture. So added those on there. Let's come in here and add a few more on here. Now, if I get to the point where my pieces are getting too big, I can always just take a scissors and cut them down. So as I said, I'm not going to worry about any of this. It's one of those processes that the more abstract you can be, the better it is. Yeah, let's put that one in there. Right, okay, so in there is a space that's too big for a piece I've got. So let's just put that in there. Actually, it's a bit long for what I was thinking. Trim it down, pop that one in the middle. Now, I'm trying not to line them up, but as you can see, I'm lining them up. That just happens to be my nature, guys. I can't change that about me. It just happens to be part of what I do. So once they're all in place, now this is going to take a few minutes for this to all stick down. Let's see if I can put another piece in there, I think, as well. So it's all going to take a few minutes to stick down. And normally when I'm doing these, if I've got everything out, I would normally walk on quite a batch of them and do 4 or 5 of them at a time, just to make sure I have loads of them done, because trying to be random with them, it just gives you more and more options for being creative. So if I look at some, well, that's drawing I did yesterday. There's one now. These may not look a lot as we look at them now, but believe me, when you start using them, you'll find they just give you options as far as different backgrounds or different elements of interest. So these were literally me just cutting strips and sticking them to a bit of grey board just to give a bit of interest. Now, this is not going to be fully stuck down by now, but I'm going to try and do the next step of the process because I don't want to make too many videos and then have to edit them all together. So there you go. Once they're on there and once they're stuck down, as I said, I'm taking a risk here. I then come in with a brush of Mod and I'll actually put more Mod Podge over the top. Now, all I'm doing here is basically sealing them up. Not that the foam is going to soak up paint or anything or be ultra porous, but what it does, it just means that it adds that little bit more element of waterproofing or security, or it just holds the paint a bit better. That's my finding anyway. So excuse my big old arm anyway. So there you go. So as you can see, I'm just being slap on with this really. I'm not spending too much time or too much effort making it perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually finish this off completely, let it dry, trim off the edges, and then I'm going to come back, show you what jelly plate I use, and show you the process, and let's see if I can make a background live on screen for you. Well, live on screen, as live as we're going to get. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So once again, any fun foam, it doesn't actually need to be fun foam. You could actually do this with cut shapes of card. I just found that fun foam is just easier. I can buy it really inexpensively. It goes through my die cutting machine. It cuts really easily with a craft knife as well. So, okay, I will see you in a few minutes, guys. Hi there, so we're back. Okay, so as you can see, I had a little test run with this. This is about an hour after I made it. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to have a test because there's nothing more embarrassing if I started using this and bits fell off. So it was drying for about 20 minutes. I then flipped this over and cut the edges off so that it was nice and flush. I've done one play with it, which actually just resulted in me cleaning off the jelly plate with that, just because I wanted to make sure there were no hiccups when I did this. So what am I using? This is the company Gel Press that I'm using their jelly plate from. Mine is a 12 by 12. There are certainly other sizes, dimensions and shapes out there. There are other companies as well. You can make your own, although I tend to steer away from that because it's got gelatin in it. It does mean you've got to keep it sealed and in the fridge, and it could deteriorate over the time. I'd rather just spend the money, have the plate and look after it really well for life. So that was that. What else do I need to use? This is a speedball. It's a brayer. It's a roller. It's a firm roller as well. It's not soft. I like this because it spins really freely, as you can see. Also, that clips off, so it's easy to wash. Need a damp cloth because I can get really messy, and so will you. What else am I using? I'm just using a selection of paints. Now, the paints I'm using, I just bought in my local stationery store, some art shops. You can even get it in the pound or dollar stores, wherever you are. Out of choice, my brand that I love using most is by Diane Reevely, and it's the Dilutions paint range. I know that not everyone has got access to these, or not everyone has have these, so that's why I'm using your generics in this thing, but I do love Diane's stuff. It's got a great colour range and viscosity, and I think there's over 30 colours in the range, and there are pearls. I'm using a 12 by 12 piece of white paper stock or cardstock. It's not that high a GSM, but it's enough for me to pull apart. You could actually do this on magazine, newspaper, wallpaper, whatever you choose to do, but that's what I'm using. And this is my gel plate, or my jelly plate, or my mono printing system. Always feels a bit freaky to me. So why is it on an acrylic board? It doesn't need to be. It could be on a work surface, but I like this because sometimes I'm a little limited for space here. So I could be working here, move it to one side, work on something else, move this back. Also, I don't always put the paper on the plate. I sometimes pick the plate up and push it onto the paper. So that's the other thing. One other thing I've got is what I call my cleanup book. This is just a whole pile of art pages. And as you can see, anytime I'm mono printing or I just clean off my brayer on there, I'll try and remember to show you that at the end of it. I think that's everything. So let's get started. So what am I going to do first? Let's give it a bit of a background. So I'm going to use a darker blue, a lighter blue, and maybe a white, just to start the whole process off. Now, it's worth saying at this point, paints come in different viscosities. My white is really heavy and thick. I find it quite hard to roller this one out so it's smooth. I probably am not going to be using that one in the future, because for me, it's more like an oil paint and it's a little harder to brayer in. But you know, it's a good paint, it's just not for me. It was one of those I picked up and experimented with, and when the tube is gone, I'll revert back to my Diane Reevely's. When I'm brayering, I start with the lightest colour, then work my way across. As you can see, it takes a bit to get the white rolled out. That started that, and I'll go to my blue. Now, all I'm looking for is to build up a layer of paint that's going to actually just give me a bit of a background for this. Now, when you're selecting your colours, I would recommend working in groups of cool colours or warm colours. And if you're not familiar with those, then check them out on the internet or have a look at Colour Wheel Theory. I've got that there. I'm going to take the tool we made earlier on. I'm going to come in. I'm just going to press that down in a couple of areas just to lift off some of the paint. I could have used that to print another paper, but as I said, I'm limited on space here, so I couldn't do that. Let's just do this. Also, once I start jelly printing, I don't normally just do one sheet at a time. I maybe do 20 or 30 and just alternate between the colours and what textures I use. So this is unusual for me to do one at a time. So I've just smoothed it down with my hand. There is a tool you can use. I tend to steer away from that. I don't need it. I've got big hands. So come in here, just gently peel this off. This jelly mat is reasonably new, so it's got a darn good grip to it. So just on the first pull, that's what I got. Now, to be honest, I really like that, and I could probably leave that as is, but you're not going to be satisfied with that, are you? So we're going to do a little bit more. Now, the bits that are left on here, I'm not going to worry about. I think they're a lovely piece of interest for the next one, and they may come off on the next one. So I'm going to put a little more of that blue on. Now, blue is obviously a cool colour. I'm going to add purple to it. Now, purple is neither hot, warm nor cold. It's both. It's one of those colours that crosses over. So depending on what the dominant colour is that you're working with, say it's a pink, it'll work perfectly. But if it's a blue, it'll also work perfectly. Just be aware that it gives you different effects depending on the colour you put it with. So let's just give that. Now, I'm not pressing hard here, guys. I'm just giving a little bit of a roll. Clean off that brayer. Let's use exactly the same tool again that I created earlier on, because every time I do it, it'll give me different windows. Now, I've got purple here and I've got white on here, so I think I'm going to flip that over, put that down, give that a bit of a press, and start to peel it back, hopefully not knocking the camera, which I do have a habit of doing. So, and I'll see what that looks like. Okay, guys, I think that one's a winner. I think that's done. I could keep adding layers of colour to it. If I was going to add anything, I'd probably add a touch of black just to make this pop. But then I don't know what I'm going to be using this for. I might actually be putting a border around this or stamping onto it in the future. So that was just 2 layers. So just to summarise, this was just fun foam. This was just cardstock. It could have been recycled. I've just cut it out. I could have used a die. I just used a craft knife. I used Mod Podge because I like the stability it gives me. I used a brayer. As far as the clean-up sheet, we didn't do a lot of cleaning up, you know. That's a good foundation. I could cut tags or journaling cards of this. I could keep adding. Maybe the next time I do this, with some colour combinations. If I'm using this colour again, maybe I'll add that colour to this one. So it's just building up. So again, love this. This was just the gel plate. The one that I recommend, or the one that I use most, is my gel press. They have lots of different sizes and shapes. My favourite paints are the Dilutions by Diane Reevely. Maybe in the future, and I do more of these, I'll maybe focus more on these. However, just as I said, I'm aware not everyone has got these. As far as different shapes, you saw that I used this one. I could have used the circles. I could have used the hoops. I could have used anything. The thing I like about this, guys, is I'm creating backgrounds that are uniquely mine. I haven't got to worry about copyright. So if I actually wanted to make these into a digital scan for my Etsy shop, I could. If I wanted to sell these, I could. I haven't actually used anything from anyone else. Everything's uniquely mine, and I haven't had to spend a fortune. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Look out for more videos from me. I will have them coming. As I said, as far as my social media goes, on Facebook, I'm at Ceri the Crafter. If you're into cake, put at Ceri the Cake and you'll find I'm there as well. As far as my Etsy shop goes, just look for Ceri the Crafter or search Ceri the Crafter. I only sell digital products. You never know, this may actually become a digital download in the future. So, I'm Ceri, C-E-R-I. If you enjoyed this video, please just subscribe, click like, get notifications, whatever you need to do. It's lovely seeing you guys, and enjoy. Happy printing.